So how many of you have done that? Crawled around on your hands and knees down on the forest floor looking for a piece of your equipment? You should be raising your hand, because if you spend any amount of time out in the woods, that has obviously happened to you. So today we're going to talk about three things. There's no other way to really put it. Just three main things, okay, that you can do in an outdoor environment when it comes to maintaining, not losing, finding your gear. Number one is to not lose your gear to begin with. Now I know that sounds like, yeah, okay, that great tip, Dan, great tip, but that is really true. So, but there's a few things that go along with that. So when I talk about not losing your gear and maintaining your gear, that starts when you are first packing your gear. So if you're like me, you get out your trusty old backpack, you take everything out of it, and then you start going through all these scenarios in your head. What am I going to sleep with? What am I going to cook with? What do I have? A cutting tool? Do I have some type of rope? Do I have a water bottle? What am I going to cook with? You go through all that and you pack up your bag. So generally most people are going to put all that stuff out and then they're just going to fill their backpack and be out the door. But I like people to go one step further with that. When you are packing your backpack, be very specific with where each piece of equipment goes. As you do that, memorize that up here in that brain of yours. So when you get out in the field and you begin to utilize or look for those pieces of gear, you know exactly where they're at. Once you're done using them, they go in that exact location once again. That goes for your backpack, your haversack, and also the gear inside your pockets. So having a proper place for every single piece of gear that we bring out here is going to help tremendously. That way you're not laying something on a stump, you don't have something in your shelter, then something in your haversack across the camp, and then another piece in your backpack. Everything stays in a single location where you always know where it's going to be. So myself, I could tell you, if I use my bank line and then I'm going to put it away, it's always in my haversack. My roll of bank line is always inside my haversack. So when I'm done with it, it's in my haversack. When I'm looking for it, it's in my haversack. I very rarely, and I try to, and this is part of this video, you don't want to lay it down and just throw it on the ground. If you're going to lay it anywhere, I lay it on top of my haversack on the ground, so I know where it's at. It's always connected to my haversack per se. So learning these things about your gear is going to help you tremendously. So that way, when you use your ferro rod, you open your backpack back up, you get out your fire pouch, and you put your ferro rod right back in there, zip it, it is safe and ready to go. All right, so the second thing is redundancy. Now when it comes to redundancy, that basically just means have multiples of the same type of items. So we know that there are these high priority items, I would say, in the world of bushcraft and survival. Some of them being fire starting items, others being like cutting tools. So let's have multiple of them in multiple areas of our gear. So let's start with knives in general. I think knives, everybody loves a knife, right? Who doesn't love a knife? But most of us, okay, go out into the woods and maybe you throw in your good hip knife, right? So it's right on your belt, it's in the sheath, and you're good to go. You have that along with you and you think you're set. But what happens if that thing gets misplaced? Do you have anything else? So a way that you can combat that is to take something like a pocket knife and keep it inside your pocket. Now, it might not totally replace everything that that belt knife or hip knife can do, but it does give you another knife to cut with. Don't like it in your pocket, you can also put this somewhere in your backpack. But in my case, I have my pocket knife in my pocket, my belt knife, of course, on my hip, and then inside my backpack, I generally have a third knife. That might be a small carving style knife, maybe a bigger butcher knife, or maybe even a second pocket knife in one of my kits. Even the pocket knife that's on your multi-tool. That thing can come in super handy. And lastly, thing number three, that is if you actually misplace or lose an item. So there's lots of different things with this. Number one, you didn't follow the first two rules, so shame on you. But listen, it's going to happen, right? You put your roll of bank line down because you're tying a bunch of stuff up, and then next thing you know, it's like, where's my bank line? So I tell people to take the same approach when you lose an item as when you lose yourself. So we realize that we lost our axe sheath. So rather than kicking leaves around and jumping around real quick and running all over the place, stop, sit down, gather your thoughts. Now, although that might seem a little bit crazy for an axe sheath, here's the thing. Do you really need to get that axe sheath back, right? Dangerous walking around without the sheath, and if you're out for multiple days, now you're going to be stuck without it. So sometimes just sitting down, gathering your composure again, right? Not that you're going to be that panicked about it, but we're taking that same approach as if you're lost. So you're gathering your composure, you're thinking, when did you last use it? And trying to remember back to the last time that you saw it, or put it down, or placed somewhere. And then before you start moving things around, just observe that area, okay? This time of the year, again, with all these leaves on the ground, it's very easy for something to blend in. We use all neutral colors generally out here, not bright orange type things. So if you have a neutral color axe sheath made of nice leather, it's going to blend in with these leaves. So sometimes just stopping, thinking what it looks like, looking in that general area and observing, it usually pops out. When you start to mess with leaves, the leaves start to cover over things, that's when it becomes a nightmare and they start getting pushed around, very hard to feel and find, so not a good idea. So stop, observe, look around, think about it, and generally that'll help out tremendously. Alright, so that's my hot tip for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. I want everybody to get outside because this is such a gorgeous time of the year to be out, even though all the leaves have already probably fallen, depending on where you're at. It's great. The air is cool and crisp and it's just comfortable to be out. So get out there, enjoy yourself. Also check out Coalcracker, Bushcraft.com. Also subscribe to this channel. And then until the next video, stay in the woods.